Little microphone check here. Little mic check. If you can hear me over the music, please say something in the comments. Cheers, Wolf Creek. Cool, well, I think I've probably made all 10 of you, 12 of you, wait, 11 of you wait long enough. Time to sort of show you around like I promised. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Dark Arps, and I'm just gonna stop this music. And this is the Audioship. I've done about 25 of these videos now, where basically I do a live improvisation, sometimes with a guest, on this machine that I've made that is basically my kind of idealized live and improvised electronic music machine. And it's called the Audioship because it fucking looks like a spaceship. Look at it. So yeah, in previous shows I've just played, but tonight I thought I'd show you guys how it works and try and break it down for you a little bit. So yeah, first just a little background about why I did what I did and how I approached it and stuff like that. And also, forgive me, this is partially scripted. It just kind of helps me explain what I'm trying to say a little more eloquently. So forgive me if I look over and look like I'm checking my emails. I'm actually reading a script. So this machine was designed because I was sick to shit of meticulously preparing material in advance of a show, like I used to do. So previously my live sets were very manicured. I would fire scenes in Ableton and they would play 8-bar loops of stems from tracks that I produced, and there would be just a little bit of MIDI clip sending to an Access virus. And I would tweak the shit out of that virus, but everything else was very, very predetermined. So I loved the material I was playing, but it started to feel kind of stale. And also very time consuming because I'd spend a lot of time preparing the sets. It would almost be like making an hour-long song made up of stems that I would modify and, you know, do something new with. But it was still, you know, it was still kind of a lot of work, and so I wanted to get rid of all of that work. So basically the core philosophy behind this design was an inherent laziness in pursuit of a live set that requires zero preparation. I was also aware of how badly I needed to ramp up my production output and stop taking my sweet-ass time over writing and producing content. And also to prove myself that I'm capable of doing that like the real professionals do, and just move on, finish the track, move on. I used to feel sort of a pride in taking a long time over making tracks, but now I realize how completely flawed and arrogant a viewpoint that is, because there are literally thousands of tracks being made every day. And what the fuck is so special about my shit? You know, who the hell am I to think that my stuff is special? And more to the point though, art making is a muscle. You have to flex it often, and you have to make a ton of garbage for any of it to actually be enduring. So the Audioship needed to be a system that also allows for quick and easy writing and production and completion of tracks with minimal fuss when moving between Ableton Live, where all the live sketching and the improvisation happens, and Logic Pro, which is where I like to structure my tracks. Just gonna see if there's anything going on the internet. Is anyone saying anything? I'm really not good at doing these, so I apologize. No, I'm not answering that question. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, so another motivation for this. So in some of the more elite schools of thought in electronic music and techno, there's been a big backlash against DJ and live sets that use a laptop. So many people, let's call them the heads, don't want to see that a computer is involved in the creation of wicked sound that is currently igniting the dance floor. Or perhaps that think that using a laptop is demonstrable of inferior skill as a DJ, or just some other technical or artistic snobbery. The debate rages on, but the point is that in order to sheepishly conform to this intimidating new standard, I felt my live sets needed to look like I wasn't using a laptop, even though I obviously am using a laptop, because not using a laptop on principle is just kind of, I don't know, it's pig-headed. I think it's kind of stupid. So, yeah. Anyway, so to wit, I basically felt like there might be some kind of way to do something very special if I could have a system where I could just make stuff up on the fly without having to prepare anything. So obviously I made a thing that looks like a spaceship. Before I show you how this thing works, I wanted to touch on a really happy byproduct which emerged as this thing began to function properly. And one which I had not anticipated and was not in my design brief when I started thinking about it, which is that collaboration and working with other artists is incredibly easy on this thing. It really fosters that. It's a drivable machine. And people can learn it relatively quickly as long as they've got a modicum of experience using electronic music tools. It's kind of like teaching a teenager how to drive, but less dangerous. So yeah, basically, you know, I have a sort of a dream with this thing where I take it on tour, and I go from city to city, and in each city where I get booked, I link up with that city's top-notch electronic musicians, techno producers, and show them how this works. And then we do a show where we play together. Maybe I show like 6 of you guys how this works, and we set this shit up on stage and we play for 6 hours. And you can DJ with it, you can play tunes, you can play Traktor, you can beat match with it. It's like another deck in a way, just a fucking massive one. Yeah, so that's the kind of pie in the sky ideal dream of this thing. Yeah, I think I'm just going to kind of like run through what the different pieces are and how they work together. So here we go. So basically, we should just sort of start in the middle of this thing with the mixer. And the central mixer for the whole setup is this Behringer X32, X32 producer. And it's amazing because it's just unbelievably functional for such a small package. It's a standard rack width, but it has 16 analog inputs, 6 aux in, 6 aux outs, 8 analog outs, and then a ton of I/O with a FireWire card with the computer. So this is where everything gets mixed and, you know, sent back out to the monitors or back out to master output, which is what you guys are hearing on the stream. And then above this mixer is another mixer, and this mixer is all about drums. Everything to do with drums exists, it gets mixed through here, and these other devices on the outside of this mixer also have stuff to do with the drums. Either insert effects. Insert effect is a compressor after the Chaos pad. We've got distortion on a send, and down here we've got an Electrics filter factory that is on the end of the distortion chain, and we've got an Electrics Mo effects, which I basically use the delay from. Again, these are just effects exclusive to the drums submix, and the output of that goes through the Chaos pad and through the, this is a TL Audio 5021 stereo valve compressor, and the output of that goes into the first 2 channels on this Behringer mixer. What next? So yeah, first the drums. So basically the majority of the drum sounds are taken care of by the Electron machine drum, which is over here. And I can, you know, add different drum sounds to it. For example, a kick drum. And then yeah, basically all the different sounds that come from the machine drum just get routed through the Mackie effects, rather Mackie mixer. So I'm just putting some trigs on a hi-hat. But the point is that I have separation on each of these channels for different sounds that come from the machine drum. In addition to the machine drum, I have this Jomox M-Bass 11, which is an analog kick drum machine, and it basically does whatever the machine drum's kick does. So I'm sending MIDI out from the machine drum, splitting it, and one of those splits goes into the MIDI input of the Jomox. So I can basically double up on my kicks and I can swap them, which is super useful. Yeah, So in terms of effects, as I said, I've got distortion. This dimming is a bit too much. That's better. Now I can actually hear what I'm doing. It's nearly not feeding back. So using the mixer and the send effects, I'm sending from this Jomox kick into this compressor, out of the compressor into this, it's called a radial engineering tone bone, and I can give it a bit of tone and drive here. And then the output goes to, I'll turn this down a bit. Output goes to this filter, and so I can filter it open. That's pretty gnarly. Now I can do stuff like add a LFO to it. So I can just kind of subtly dial in nasty techno kick drum. Yeah, and then like, actually I don't like this hat sound. Prefer that one. Equally, we got some delay. Basically, this kind of covers all the bases. Oh yeah, and of course inline effects. So I can put reverb on the entire drums mix. just realized this microphone's been off for a really long time. Okay, so quick recap. Electron mono machine, which is a very versatile monosynth with a lot of interesting percussive sounds in it, interestingly. So that actually gets mixed into the drums submix over here. But also I have an Electron Octatrack, which allows me to externally sample through this 1/8 inch jack. So I can sample something from a phone. Or, for example, these pocket operators, these teenage engineering pocket operators. And in addition to being able to sample from the jacks, I can also sample via effects sends, effectively, from the main mixer here. I can send any signal that goes through this mixer, can be sent back out to the Octatrack and re-triggered, retimed. So then the drum pad here is kind of a multi-purpose MIDI controller that I use to control not only drum and percussive sounds, for example, the Electron machine drum, but I can also use it to control anything else in the system, any of the synthesizers that make any melodic content, by forcing these notes into a particular scale, which I set using this iPad app. This is Lemur. So this is an app called Lemur, and I've basically designed it to allow me to choose what key these pads should play and which melodic scale they should play. And even the note length I can set here as well. So the drum pad controller is multifaceted in that it can control anything in the system. That was part of the design. I wanted to be able to control any part of the system from here, or on the other side I have really 2 more MIDI controllers in the form of the Ableton Push and also the Nord lead I am able to use as a MIDI controller, in addition to it generating its own internal sounds. So, yeah, where was I? Down here I have a Moog Mother 32, which essentially acts as an external oscillator for the Arturia matrix brute on the other side. So the VCA out of the Mother 32 is running to the external in on the matrix brute, and then I am sending pitch CV information from the matrix brute back to pitch and gate information back from the matrix brute to the Mother 32. So I've mixed in its oscillator function that way, but in addition, the Mother 32 is also doing a really interesting thing, which is that it is converting MIDI clock that the Octatrack receives and turning it into a CV clock, a voltage clock that I can synchronize these pocket operators with. This is a PO12. It's basically it's a beatbox, and it's a really interesting one. So let me just wire this thing up here and see if I can make something good out of it. So I'm gonna route the output of the PO12 into the sampling input of the Electron machine drum. So what I'm doing here is I'm choosing the record machine, and I'm setting a trig at the beginning of the bar, and I'm choosing now the playback machine, and I'm setting a trig at the beginning of the bar, and then I'm setting the pocket operator to receive the sync clock, and now I'm going to start the clock. And now I'm going to tell the pocket operators to start playback. So it's now clock synced. If I slow Ableton's clock, the pocket operator stays in sync, which is great because they're fun. Back up to 126 where I live. So this is really cool because you can you can re-time the signal. You can you can chop up the beat and play it back at a staggered rhythmic measure. So it's now a breakbeat. Well, I mean, it was always a breakbeat, but you can see what's going on. So this is me just changing the trigger that starts the playback of the recorded beat. And I can go back to the record track and I can choose different places where the drum loop will be sampled from by adding another trig. So now it's changed the feel of the beat again. I'm going to take it off. It's very subtle in this instance, but you know, who knows? And so, you know, in addition to that, I can now scrub through different patterns until I find something that really interests me. Play with that. It's subtle enough. And you know, I can filter it, which is super useful. You can affect it, do all sorts of stuff. And because that playback channel is coming in on a separate channel on the mixer, I can isolate it. And I can add effects to it. Something else that's really interesting that I can do with the Mother 32 clocking the pocket operators is that I can change the clock divider on the Mother 32. And that'll give us a completely new interpretation of the beat. Let's take the effects off. I don't even know where the beat is now. Okay, yeah, cool. So let's go over to the right side of the ship, and what we've got over here is an Arturia Matrix Brute, which is basically a modular synthesizer wrapped up in a convenient package. All of the little modulator separate modules that you could potentially buy and build a Eurorack system. There's basically a ton of that functionality all bundled into this one extremely powerful and very, very heavy synthesizer. It's an analog monosynth, and yeah, it's capable of some really amazing sounds. The Nord lead is kind of, I'd say, the most functional synthesizer out of all of them. It's the easiest, it's the most simplistic. I love it a lot. It has a very kind of a bright sound. I also use it as a MIDI keyboard, so if I choose a particular mode on this keyboard, I can now choose whatever instrument I want to control in the ecosystem and control it. Say, for example, I wanted to control this other synth here, the Yamaha Reface DX, which is basically a DX7 clone in a tiny package, and it sounds really good. I kind of like that bass sound. So if I go over to my Ableton Push controller and choose the DX as the record armed channel, then I can control it with this keyboard, or I can control it with this keyboard. It's not a keyboard, but this is, you know, the scale that is currently selected on the iPad control interface that I made. And then above the DX is probably the jewel in the crown of this whole thing, an Axis Virus TI Dark Star Edition. It's the Polar, but with a black or gunmetal gray look, and it's just ridiculously beautiful. And I'll get into some sound design with that in a minute. All of the sounds are currently in kind of vanilla patch mode. I want to build something completely from scratch. Basically everything's like pretty vanilla, I think. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to zero this kit as well. So I'm starting with a completely empty project, absolutely nothing in it. And I'll just build something up. What else can I talk about before I do that? Yeah, so Ableton Push exists basically for not interacting with the computer at all. That's the point of the thing, is to not have to look at the computer, and you can control everything in Ableton Push. I find that's kind of true up to a point, but I can't transpose notes in it for some reason. There's a few limitations, but it is incredibly convenient otherwise, and it's basically the transport control for the entire setup. What else? And then, yeah, finally up here, this is an incredibly crucial piece. This is an ERM multi-clock. What this does is it receives a timing, audio timing tick from this mixer, which, remember, is my sound card. So effectively, Ableton Live is the clock master, and it sends an audio pulse out of an output and into the input of this clock, which turns that into a MIDI clock and goes out of 4 outputs. And those 4 outputs feed all of the hardware in this setup that needs to receive any kind of MIDI information, be it clock, but also MIDI note information and MIDI CC or control change information. So this amazing device is able to generate that incredibly stable clock. So the reason I need that is because when you have a lot of pieces of hardware in a system and you're using software as well, which we are, you know, the instruments that I have available to me in this setup are effectively limitless, because I can load any virtual instrument I want into Ableton and pretty much control it and use it in exactly the same way as I'm able to with all of the other synthesizers in the setup. So this clock ensures that the software and the hardware stay very, very tightly in sync. And it even has amazing things like shuffle. So I can actually set a certain swing amount that will be sent to all of the hardware, which is really great. What is my cat doing? What are you doing? Gemma. What else can I show you? I think we're pretty much done. Oh no, I have to show the software. Bear with me while I switch over to that. Turn the advanced scene switcher off. Stop that. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Close, good. Okay, so here we are over in the Ableton project. And, you know, I've simplified this as much as I possibly can now. And it's pretty lean. There's really not a lot of, there's not really a lot going on in this Ableton project. It just exists for me to be able to route MIDI from that drum pad controller or from the Nord lead or from any of the pieces of hardware that I want to send MIDI into from, anywhere that I want to send MIDI from, i.e. one of these synthesizers. I have to create a MIDI channel in here that will receive that MIDI and send it somewhere useful. So in the case of, for example, if I'm playing the virus and I'm playing the virus's keys, I want that MIDI to be recorded in the clip, the playback clip, or in a clip on the channel that addresses the virus. So what I've done is I've sent the output of certain tracks directly to the instrument that they need to control. So in the case of the virus in channel, I'm receiving MIDI notes and enabling the monitor in switch and sending it to the channel called virus, which is over here. So it will always send MIDI over there. But this virus channel is also listening to a MIDI track called merge. And merge is basically the destination that I have set for all of the control pad and Nord lead as a MIDI controller outputs. So basically, that's why I have these MIDI channels here, so that they can address the merge object, or rather the merge channel, which all of these instruments listen to. This allows me to record on one particular channel from multiple sources. Yeah, so in addition to the hardware, that's what these tracks are addressing. I have a couple of contact tracks. There we go. So I have two contact instruments. So I've got, you know, an endless supply of any sound you can basically imagine available to me via contact, which is super useful. But if I wanted to load up an instance of Serum, I could very easily do that. I just create a new MIDI object, find Serum. Oh, do I have it installed on this computer? Shit, I should do. There we go. And drop it on. I'll just close the plugin window. 6 Serum, fine, whatever. And I just select that object and I record arm that track. I have to make sure that I've set merge as my MIDI input. And that's it, should be. If I go to the push controller, that's me controlling Serum. So I'll just get rid of that. And of course, I can also assign Serum's output to any number of quote-unquote physical outputs. They're really the virtual outputs that are sent into the X32 mixer. So I can send to a discrete channel, and I can then send to a hardware effect from that channel, like a reverb or delay. Yeah. Okay, last stuff to show you. Let's see, control by MIDI tracks. Yep. Oh yeah. So the ability for me to play scales on the drum pads, this is achieved on a particular channel called scale, CP scale. And on this, I have set up a number of, yes, a number of pitch effects, or in the case of the transpose, a scale effect. And this isn't updating anyway, whatever. The point is that I can control with this iPad app what note is being output, he says. Oh yeah. Record armed. I deleted the track. DX. Something's not working. Weird. Huh. Oh, it's just very, very low pitch. There we go. That's why I couldn't hear it. So, I'm able to quickly change the octave range, the key, and the melodic scale of the notes. Here we go. That's the one I'm looking for. Turn the chain off. Yep. So I have the ability to choose any of the melodic scales that are available in Ableton Push. Finally, I've got a custom Max for Live patch that I made, controlling the RGB wedge. So this thing you see behind me, I'm controlling using this Lemur iPad patch, and I can control the speed at which it oscillates and the direction and the colors of it. And all sorts of things. The movie. Wave shape and all sorts of cool stuff. The grain control is always fun. It kind of paints it on in a more sort of sketchy way, like a computer struggling to keep up with the data. So with this controller, I can make all sorts of interesting patterns happen. Or I can give it to a dude doing visuals for me, and he can do that for me instead. All right. Is anyone still listening to me? Probably not. Yeah, I guess finally, if you are interested to know how I'm actually sending data to that wedge, I'm using a processing sketch that was designed for me by a friend, Kyle. This is it here. If you ever want this sketch, I can totally send it to you, just ask. And yeah, and this is converting OSC data from my Max patch, and I guess I can show you that too. So here is the Max patch that I designed, and this basically allows me to set a particular hue, saturation, and luminance value, which you can see are kind of being updated here, and send that color value to a particular range of pixels, which corresponds to one or another side on the wedge here. So basically, OSC data is sent from Max for Live out of a UDP send object and goes into this processing sketch, and then is being sent out of a local network to the device that powers those beautiful LEDs on the wedge. Anyway, I think I've talked enough. I'm going to play a bit of music and then fuck off. So thanks for joining me. I'm going to play some techno. live stream. Well done to anyone that actually sat through all of that. Good times. Thanks for joining me. I'm Dark Arps. This is the Audio Ship.